Hey, it's Stephanie. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So, Angie Hanley, thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
You are officially my third guest in home studio.
That's awesome. I'm so happy you're doing this.
It is. It's so awesome too. Because I did about 20 episodes of people from all over the world on Zoom.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's different when we see each other and we know each other.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how I want to start is what I like about you and why I wanted you on the podcast is because you're very self-aware. And I feel like through our journey of our friendship, we've had some really amazing conversations on your couch, on my couch.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my first question for you is, was there a moment when you're like, you know what, I think there's more to me than just what I think all the time and the surface, and what was the impetus to kind of start digging deeper and in that process?
Let's see. I think I'll try to just speak for myself, but sometimes it's kind of like a shared experience. So I think that unfortunately, that a lot of it comes from finding conflict in your life. For me, finding conflict in my life and having that sort of uncover, like, this is what I thought, like my life would be. There's more than this. And then it's probably more than just the surface stuff, but there's more to me as well. I don't know. I mean, it's a tough one for me to answer because I felt like even as a kid, I just felt like I didn't know because I wasn't self-aware at the time, but I think I always felt like there was a lot to give. I always felt like I had a lot to offer. I always felt like a healer of some kind. And I don't know. So I already knew that there was a lot of depth, I guess. Maybe it's when other people don't see it and then you kind of accept that view that you get into the conflict, whether it's with a boss or whether it's, with a spouse or, a parent, that you're like, no, you're seeing a surface view of me and I'm bigger than that.
Yeah. That's interesting you say from your childhood, you had a lot to give and heal. And you became a chiropractor, a doctor.
Yeah.
So what did you want to be as a little girl?
I totally thought I was going to be a veterinarian.
Same.
You love animals, so you're going to be a veterinarian. And then you find out that, I didn't find out till much, much later that, a vet is probably the least likely, to make me happy. Because they deal with so much. They
really do.
And I probably wouldn't have known to be I would have been happier like as a large animal, working with like horses, cows, like farm life. Because shutting me in an office with, pets with ingrown toenails would have driven me crazy.
Yeah.
But I am so grateful for the vets that, that I take my animals, who care for my animals. I mean, I'm super grateful for them. I'm just glad it's not me.
Yeah. So when did you decide that?
That wasn't for me.
Yeah. Like when did you sign up for chiropractic school knowing like this, okay, now I'm going to help people instead?
That was so much later because actually in high school, I decided I was going to be an English major. I was going to be a music major, so it was all the kind of like art and literature stuff that I swung to, and writing. I was really convinced that I was going to be a writer. And my first major in college actually was creative writing.
Okay.
And then I got a semester into it and it was like, I'm not going to make any money doing this. So I decided I could figure out writing later, and I needed a life that was worth writing about instead of just setting out as an 18-year-old, like I'm going to be a really insightful, like cutting edge writer. Like, no, you're not. You're 18. Shut up.
So I wanted to be a writer as well. I took some classes. I don't think I took any college classes in writing, but definitely in high school. But I have this idea of writing a book about a young journalist finding herself.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's like a kindred spirit in there somewhere.
Yeah, totally.
last when we went to Maine, my boyfriend and I went to Maine, I saw this like kind of crappy car going up this driveway to this mansion. And in my head, I'm like, oh, it's probably like some journalist, like her first story, getting this edge on this old lady and learning all life.
Yeah.
It all just came to
You
me.
got the writer's eye. Yeah. Because you notice stuff like that and then you put it in.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but it was really, I'm like, oh, I'm going to write a book about that.
Right.
And how beautiful would that be? Like, what do you wish you would have known at 18 that some wise old woman could have sat down and told you?
Wow. That's a big question. That's a, like, because if I knew that, I'd probably quit everything I do and like just walk around telling all 18-year-olds like that magic thing. One of the biggest things that I try to impart to my kids, and I try to impart it to my patients as well. And I take care of a lot of kids in my practice too. And so, just with a little bit of language, I try to, of course, they're in to get adjusted and everything. What I try to sort of set sometimes a baseline for is just to say, like, it's okay to be happy first. And I do tell my kids that in today's society, it is so tough because they've got social media just, like blaring at them all the time of how they should look, how they should act. High school I just recently had my youngest literally say to me, I'm so glad we went to a concert. And it was by somebody who she met she met in Guatemala on our trips. And just going to hear the music, on the way back, she said, I'm so glad we did that. It reminds me of who I really am. And high school totally buries that. And I think that would be like, I wouldn't do it at 18. I think I'd do it at like 12. I'd say, be you. You be you and allow other people to be themselves too and stop judging. Because, you're starting with yourself. And you think you need to be these things. And until you're those things, you can't be happy. You can't be content. You can't be acceptable or lovable until you fulfill this list.
Yeah.
And if there was any way to break that cycle, that would be the first thing I do. That I would go back and tell like my younger self. It's like, just be content first and let the other things fall into place from that instead of, these are the things that I have to do to be okay, to be acceptable, to be lovable, to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I hear what you're saying. And what I think you're saying is that we've had it wrong. And we've had it wrong. Right?
It's reverse.
Yeah. That, and I'll say it in my own words, I'll try anyways, that I thought love meant being accepted by others. I didn't realize love was something that I give myself.
Yeah, totally. We do not learn that.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying is learn how to love yourself and who you are.
Yeah, it is. It's like, how do you start out just being content instead of somehow we get the message that, I don't know, it probably is different for different people and different families and stuff. But I think somewhere around between the age of 10 and 12, we start keeping lists. Like we start internalizing these lists that I'm going to be okay when I do this, and for us, it was definitely looking a certain way, getting onto a certain team, right? Like, and then it keeps going. I'm not going to be happy until I'm on varsity. I'm not okay until I've gotten to a certain dance class, a certain
or this many followers on
right.
Instagram.
And for boys, so much, oftentimes it's related to sports or, that they've got it too. I'm not going to be okay until, for them, a lot of times it's money, until I get to this college and then have this amount of success, and then like how boys are so much measured by what they do. Girls tend to be measured more by how they look. And, those are starting to shift. I'm really happy to see that those attitudes are definitely in the process of shifting, but those are the things that I still see a lot of young people internalizing right now, that they're just living, teenagers are living with so much anxiety. The lists have grown. Social media is like just feeding them even more information about the things that they need to be, do, and fix, especially fix. before they can be acceptable, successful, lovable. And how could we just shift that to, unwind us all back to like being age 8 or 10 or whatever, when we're just there, we're just living. It's just, I have no clue. I just try to do it one thing at a time and one sentence at a time when it comes to my kids, their friends. You're perfect just the way you are. You're amazing. You're amazing. And whatever. And then whatever they're working on, that's just an extension of your amazingness, right? And if you fail at something, that's just helping you learn. It's not your failure. It's not a personal failure, it's just a stepping stone to more cool stuff. So
yeah. And I think like, how do we teach our kids that is because we didn't learn that we're learning is we just keep learning, and we talk about it, and we talk about it with other moms, and we talk about it with our friends.
Yeah. And talk about it with them, because exposing them to the reality that we grew up in, in a similar world that they did, that they are, just because we try to shift it doesn't mean, that they're out of those woods.
Right, yeah.
They're still living in it too. And if we can be honest with them, I mean, they're smart.
Yeah, they're actual
teenagers,
people.
Yeah, right? Like the moment you try to freaking lie to a teenager, they're just like, they check out.
Yep.
Because to that, everything when you're that age is about trust. Can they actually trust you?
Yeah.
And the moment they learn that that they smell that they can't trust what you said, and they do, they're just like out of there.
Yeah, like with homeschooling, it's with math. I have to learn the math first, because if I show any weakness, bam, over. If you don't know this, how am I supposed to know this?
And then, then the story of, because I had to, math is tough for some of us. We don't all learn it and then retain it. I would have to relearn it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
YouTube's amazing for that.
Yeah. See, there's some good things.
Yeah. And so when we talk about loving ourselves and our own happiness first, what are some of the things that you implement into your life about your own said happiness, and realizing that happiness means different things to different people? Maybe it's acceptance, maybe it's awareness, maybe it's presence, maybe it's gratitude, whatever happiness means to you. How do you incorporate that? Because you do touch people every day and you are in such a healing field. How do you heal and touch yourself?
That is for the next podcast, and that'll be fun. Like, let's. All right. So we've got episode 2 all planned out. First of all, I think that happiness is not necessarily a state that, I think that we have moments, and that I think it's more useful. I've found it more useful to think of it in terms of contentment and peace, because happiness is the blip, right? Like it's not necessarily, we don't just live in this state of happiness.
Yeah, it's almost like unattainable if you're trying to.
Right. And I think that's also really like we can do a disservice to ourselves and to our kids, again, right? The trust thing with kids. If you actually tell most teenagers that the goal is to be happy all the time, they're already going to be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, screw that.
Or they'll be like, what's wrong with me?
Or they're
because
failing.
I'm not.
Exactly. They're failing because they're failing to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
And we put that on them. We put it on ourselves, and then we put it on them. And then they already feel like they're coming up short. And it's like, okay, let's talk about contentment. Let's talk about, you should be at a relative state of peace most of the time. Discomfort drives us, right? It drives us to learn. It drives us to heal. It drives us to get off the couch. So that's okay. It's okay to have moments of discontent and discomfort, because, without discomfort, I would not have a practice.
Right.
Because that's what motivates people to come and see me. Find out that the general well-being that they find when they come more regularly is like, oh, we want that. So to talk about more like contentment, well-being, I think is more useful, because happiness should be like, they're the highs. They're the things that come, and if you're content, maybe they come more often. That would be amazing, to have those moments more often. How do I do that?
Yeah, what is your practice?
Wow, I talked a lot about that.
No, it's good to acknowledge what that means to you.
I feel like you even said, like, maybe a couple of years ago that you were reading the book Radical Acceptance. Did you read that book?
I've read a lot of books.
Okay. I have that book. I don't know if I've read the whole thing, but I've definitely had it. And I think that has probably been the biggest stepping stone to me finally finding my way out of the stress and anxiety and discontent that I found myself in after checking so many of the boxes that, you keep working at it, you keep working at it. And I thought I had checked those boxes, having the spouse, having the business, having, the kids. And then, of course, you raise the kids the way we've got those check boxes too, where we judge ourselves, like how nutty crunchy are we and stuff like that, and I had all the boxes checked for the perfect nutty crunchy life for the kids. And,
Yep.
And it was all so freaking stressful. It was never, okay, that's not fair to say all, because that overlooks a lot of times that we're really very joyous. That's, and that there were times definitely that were good, and serving people in my practice has always been a wonderful thing. But the underlying anxiety that was constantly there's always something next. There's always something next. Walking out of that and going into more acceptance. That's what I think I was getting at, was just realizing that, no, some things are hard, and that's okay. And not to judge myself because this is hard. I think that was the worst of it, is like, this shouldn't be hard. If I was better, this shouldn't be hard. If I was better at being married, this wouldn't be so hard. If I was better at running a business, this wouldn't be so hard. And so you double down. At least I did. The perfectionist A personalities, type A's, will not accept it. We'll double down and try to make it work out.
Well, that's also codependency. I mean,
yes,
that's a huge part of what I was trying to do, was make everything okay for everybody. And I lost myself in the process. So, there's all kinds of pieces that go into those feelings of, okay, I'm doing everything that I thought was right. Why isn't this working? Why can't I wake up and be happy?
And
why am I crying at the dinner table? I'm laughing, but it's true. But like what is wrong with me that I can't give everybody what they need?
Yeah.
There's got to be something wrong with me.
And how is it that I'm, at this place, right, where everything is supposed to be, from all these check boxes have check marks next to them, and yet there's still conflict, and it's either with yourself or with, and, the acceptance for me. And I mean, one of the big pieces of acceptance was accepting that my marriage wasn't working. And I think a lot of women, a lot of people, not just women, but a lot of people resist getting there really hard, because having that spouse and having that, if we have that place filled in our lives, then we're socially acceptable, we're accepted and loved by somebody else. I think you talked about that, for being accepted, being the same as love, or having approval.
I thought love was from somebody else, not myself.
And in our, at least, American culture, I'm sure it's lots of other places too, but having that box checked is so paramount that we'll stay in it and stay miserable just to keep the box checked, because unchecking that box has these social ramifications.
Yeah.
And of course you've got a family dynamic there too, and that you've got kids, but it's when you can get to the acceptance to understand that something's not working, then you can get more peaceful with it. Okay, then it's not. And that's okay. So how do we move forward from that? But fighting the truth is just, you're fighting yourself, you're fighting reality. And so that acceptance piece of this isn't working, and that's okay. How do we move forward? I mean, how many other parts of your life just have to be the same way? Recognizing some things about childhood, right? You mentioned you were writing a book. I'm in the process of writing a book too. And mine focuses a lot on being the child of somebody with borderline.
Yeah.
And the awareness of like, wow, first of all, understanding that there was a lot about my childhood, you know, because I got to a certain point in life where like, everything's okay, right? Like, we kind of write that script as we, you know, no matter how, we write that script because we have to feel like we're okay. And it took me a very long time to go, no, that wasn't living with a really independent mom. That was messed up. You know, like I used to think that, you know, my mom was that it made her interesting. And it took me a long time to finally go, oh no, that's messed up. And to be okay with that, the acceptance of that was finally the starting point for going, okay, now what?
In your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. And coming to terms with how that was like, oh, okay. It's okay to accept that something isn't okay. And I think that's what I mean. Whether it's the marriage, it's how you grew up. Maybe it's a current relationship with your own kid or whatever, just to kind of finally get that acceptance of how is it is the first step in getting some peace.
It is. I 100% agree. I think about different relationships that I've been in and with my family as well, and with my children as well. Okay, if I'm still playing a part of an old storyline,
right,
just to keep the peace, who is that helping?
Right.
You know, and that is that acceptance of like, okay, no, it's okay that it's not okay. I don't have to keep pretending like it's not, and I don't have to keep pretending like I'm somebody that I'm not.
Right.
We can just just all be.
Let's just
see how it goes.
Back. Yeah, let's just and it's I don't know how you feel about that, but sometimes being in a small town really feels like you've got more of a spotlight too.
I think because we follow you.
We have small businesses, you know, and it's not that everybody's in each other's business. I don't mean that, but you're just in a little bit more of a spotlight.
Yeah,
you know, like we all know who so-and-so is, who owns that business, who has this, who has that, you know? And so sometimes when you have to make moves that are personal in nature, they affect your business too. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden you feel like you're dismantling everything.
Yeah.
Including your public persona and perception in a small town. And I'm sure that's true in larger places too, but I felt like it was even more amped up.
I felt and feel still very vulnerable. Like when I go out in public by myself, I feel very much in the spotlight because I am different and I have made choices that people don't understand. And I'm okay with that. The vulnerability part is that old programming of like, oh, I'm stepping out and I shouldn't be. I should, like Greatest Showman.
I'm not perfect enough.
Yeah. Like I'm in the darkness. I should be in the darkness.
Yeah, right. I'm not perfect enough, and that's exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah,
like with the, telling our kids. How do you tell them? It's like, no, you need to be seen. You're, this is this is life. This is, you're out there. You got to get out there and do what you love and be who you love, and and learn by that process. Not only to be judged, not be affected by other people's judgment, hopefully.
Yeah.
But also how to not be judging other people.
Right.
Like that's the only way to break that cycle is if somebody's loving themselves and they're not, picking other people apart.
Right.
And then we stop being at odds with each other all the time. But how do you stop being at odds with yourself? And
right.
I totally get that. I totally get that.
That's where it starts.
Yeah. And for me, it tends to be more of a, sometimes I think people view me, and I could be completely wrong. I think sometimes people view me as like, well, I've been told before that, oh, you're a strong person. You're a strong person. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm gush. I'm absolute mush. I am absolute mush and gush, but I don't feel like I can be that. I think I kind of wear a facade because I have to be a female business owner in a small town. And even worse, one that started over.
Yeah.
After a major shift.
Yeah. I mean, you did after your divorce, you actually started your own practice and the Gateway Wellness. Yeah.
And even with, I went back to my birth name.
Oh,
and
yeah. Yeah.
So it was with everything,
Yeah.
like people were coming in who were like, people were coming in,
Oh,
they
too.
knew me forever. And they were like, I didn't know you were a chiropractor. It was like, oh my God. Okay. I've been a chiropractor in town for, at that point, like 18 years, but I think they thought I worked the back, just because I was in a partner practice. A lot of times they assume that the woman is like admin.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, you work billing. No.
I did work billing. Somebody had to work billing.
I did that too. I did do that too. Yes. I think people see me as something that, yes, I have to be in some ways, because you do have to be a little bit flinty.
Yeah.
You
do. Yeah.
To just move ahead, with life after you've had to dismantle some things.
Yeah. And it's, there's so many ways that happens in life.
Yeah. Right.
So many ways.
Yeah. You break something down because you have to move past it. Right. But yeah, I'm not a strong person. I'm gush. And I think it's part of why I've ended up with, I have a lot of animals at home. I've got 3 dogs. I have 2 cats, because I have a really hard time walking away from like adoption events or, something like that. Or God help me, I'll see a picture in the paper, or now it's on Facebook and I'm like, okay, I have to have that animal.
Yeah.
Like right now, especially if it's, shelter and that's where that's where I let that be, and that's part of why I love walking into your place. It's because, you've got all the furry beasts too. So, I love it.
Yeah. And that's like my inner child, or my young child self, coming out to play. I grew up on a farm, so I always had farm cats and dogs.
Yeah, the same for me.
Yeah. If I had I think I have 1,152 square feet. If I had 1,162,
you'd have one more.
I get one more cat.
You could probably add a parakeet to this situation right here. I think you could.
Yeah, but
if I had a fence, I'd be
I know.
No, if I had a fence around my property, it's probably a really good reason not to.
Yeah, you'd have,
because I would end up. Yeah, I'd be hiding stuff from the city.
And you could. I know. I'm trying to manifest a house with a fenced-in yard this 2025.
I like that.
Yeah, just because I do want more animals. I want to rescue more animals. And we'll see. We'll see where that takes me. I also am very aware that we talked about this earlier before we started talking, that I'm not waiting for that moment to happen to feel happiness. Like, oh, now I'm happy. I am so happy to walk into my place every day and appreciate it, even if it smells funny sometimes because of the dogs.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Or whatever. And I walk in and it's warm and it's all mine. Mm-hmm. And I am just so grateful.
Yeah. Yep. I feel that too. And it is so easy to think that, like the house, right? Like, oh, now I can be okay.
Yeah.
Now,
or somebody's not going to take that from me.
I'm dating somebody. Now I'm okay.
Right.
Now I'm acceptable, because somebody accepted me. So I've got somebody's approval enough for that.
Yeah.
And my God, I'm at a point now where it's like, I'll be happier the farther I fall off the grid, but we all live by connection. So, but I think I'm ready to connect more with land and nature.
Yeah.
I love that too. So, I love that your goal is like to move into a house, and over the next 5 years, mine is going to be more like shed the house. I look at tiny home sites all the time now on Facebook. I'm like scrolling through car camping. Like
we've talked about that before,
I don't know how I do that with all the animals, but also got my kids don't quite know this yet, but I've already got the animals like parceled out, who's going to live with who when they're through college and stuff. I'll be like, oh, they're a good match,
okay,
So
yeah.
like I've got them matched up, and it's like, yeah, I'll keep like a cat who's happy in a camper.
Yeah. I mean, these are things that for me 10 years ago, if I had those thoughts about living in a camper with one cat, I'd be like, there's something wrong with me. But now when I have these weird thoughts when I'm driving, it's like, nope, this is me.
Yeah.
It's not like, why are you there's no judgment. It's just like, okay, I am a weirdo. Done. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, moving, right, like, and that's okay. Like, okay, cool. You know what?
Yeah.
You might do that for a while. Like, I think you did it. You went on a road trip for a long time.
Yeah.
Didn't you? Where you like lived out of a camper?
Yeah, I did that with my ex though, so that wasn't on.
It didn't count.
It didn't count.
Do we get to erase that one?
It didn't count because of the judgment that I felt against myself was so incredibly, I could feel it. There was so much self-judgment that because I left my twins, who were 18 at the time.
Yeah.
I left them. One moved to my parents' house. One moved into a dorm, went to college.
Yeah.
And
which to a lot of us would sound like good timing.
I know. And it should have been. But that was before I realized that it's okay to live life on my own terms.
Yeah.
I hated the idea of not having a place to sleep at night. Even though we had a camper, it was like every night trying to find a location. That was super stressful.
So it sounds romantic to not have those obligations in terms of having to pay rent, but it actually meant something to you to have that nest to like come back to.
It did, and that's from really early programming too. Okay, I got to have the house. I have to have this. I have to have that. So, but I'm really grateful that we did it because I saw so many beautiful things. The Canadian Rockies were amazing.
That's so cool. Did you think that other people thought you were crazy? Or was it just yourself?
It was me judging myself. I was surprised how many people thought it was cool. Like people would reach out to me on Facebook and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did. That's so amazing." And
I think it's a lot of people's fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. To slough off the obligations, even if it's for a little while. And yeah. So, but isn't that just another reason to like not get caught up in? We were talking a little bit earlier about even like being jealous of other people.
Yeah.
You brought that up before of like seeing somebody's, these days it's posts, it's like Instagram or Facebook or something like that. And it's really easy to jump to like, oh my gosh, they're living their best life.
They made it.
Yeah. Wow. Why am I not doing that? Or how do I do that? And it's like, how do you know that what you're living isn't exactly the dream? And if it's not your dream, then go ahead and move to something else, or like set up some goals to achieve it. But don't assume that somebody else arrived at something and therefore they earned it. You don't know what their backstory is. And with social media, you can edit everything. You can make anything look amazing. I have a half sister who I just saw posts. I didn't even know she was doing this, but she and her husband, I don't know how much time it was, but they had a vacation in Thailand. And I am so happy that, because even 5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, I would have been a little jealous. I would have been like, oh man, what is she doing that I'm not? That she's a lot younger than me. And how is she making this happen? And I think I would have gone into my own head about it. And I'm really grateful to be at a place where I am looking at her pictures and I'm going, oh my God, I'm so happy for her, because I know that it's a major like value point for her and her husband to travel, that they love doing that. I made different decisions in my life. I had the kids and and stuff like that. And, they've got big responsibilities too, but they figure it out and they do what they love. And they've made it happen for themselves. And I'm happy for her, like genuinely. And like, I'm even kind of checking in with myself as like, where's the little jealousy button? Because it's usually in here somewhere, and it's like, no, I'm genuinely happy for her. And I'm feeling like, okay, I want her to advise me on my next trip because they look like they're having so much fun. And like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have even thought to book that tour, or I wouldn't have thought to do this or something like that. And I would have simmered on that a little bit a few years ago. And I can't even tell you what's changed. I don't know what's changed. Maybe I'm just finally getting old. But I'm just like, wow, not only am I happy for her, but she's got a talent for like setting some stuff up, right? That I'm not jealous of either. I actually want to ask her, like,
Yeah.
hey, how would you do this if I weren't get her expertise too? And I feel like that's an opening up for me because I'm not mentally slinging arrows at her out of my own jealousy, which is fantastic. That feels good. And I'm not mentally tearing myself down for not being at that place. Like I just had a trip too. It was cool. And I'm glad I did it and stuff like that. But I still would have been jealous of like, oh, that trip was cooler than what I did.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that shit, but I think we spend a lot of time wasting energy on thinking that somebody else has it better.
Yeah. And, as you're talking, it was such a good reflection because what I was thinking when you were talking about your sister going to Thailand, I was like, oh, you went to Scotland.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that was really important to you. So you're doing things that are important to you.
Yeah.
Therefore, you don't give a crap about what other people are doing, but
and
you
that's
have to
probably
do those
exactly
things.
it. It's like if you, do the thing. If you're wanting to do something, then figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out and do it because otherwise you are just going to sit and sling arrows from your couch.
Yeah, because other people are doing their
from
thing.
From your phone screen.
Yeah, we just figured out life right there.
There we go. I sit a lot on the couch. I do it tremendous. I'm a couch sitter. I love it. But if there are certain things that I am ready to do, then I will okay, it doesn't seem logical. I don't have mountains of savings to that make it legitimate, to go do something. It's like, you know what? No, I'm going to do it while I have health, while I can walk and,
You're never guaranteed tomorrow.
No, you're not. So it's like if you're really moved to do something, it's time to do it.
Do you have anything on the docket?
I'm going to, I'm kind of pulling the trigger on joining a writing group that the purpose is not just to support writing, but actually to get published. And I've got a book, probably more than half written. So that's big. As far as travels, not really. There's some things I'd like to do, but at the moment, I'm pretty content to, for the next little while, sit around and try to save up some money is a good move. So
yeah, and get your story out.
Right. Yeah, and that's where the energy can go right now.
Yeah, he's not a friendly kitty. I mean, he'll come over. Yeah, I think that's so important to have something to know what's in your heart that wants to come out, and just allowing that to come out. It doesn't have to be flashy. So, if people are so inclined to see you, watch you grow, where can they find you? You're on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I don't maintain Instagram. I'm on it. Especially as I work on my book, not only will I post that on my Facebook page, which also goes to Instagram, and that's Angela Hanley DC, but I also have a Facebook page called Walking in the Woods with Peaceful Bears, and that is the title, at least the working title of my book.
Okay.
The idea being, life is a walk through the woods, and the bears are the things that, screw us up. We don't know where they came from, and suddenly we're, they're tearing us apart.
Yeah.
Dysfunction, relationships, sometimes it's the most innocent of things, but grandparents who are well-meaning, but
all of it.
There's just so much, right? So, but you're not going to make the bears go away, but how can you live with them? Hence the peaceful bears. So, and I actually had a bear experience in the woods in Tennessee that solidified that for me.
Can we hear about it?
Back. I was on a retreat, and it was during COVID, and I went down to Tennessee for a weekend retreat on some land, and it was kind of newly established as a retreat center. So they knew that there were bears in the area, but they didn't realize how close the bears were in the area quite yet. And I had gone up the hill on a little bit of a break, after we'd done some breath work, and I headed up the hill up mountain, and kind of found a place, got up above a path a little bit, just really sat in the middle of some trees and some just really thick growth, and just seeking to ground after this really intense breathwork session. And all of a sudden, from my right to my left, on the path that I had just crossed and came up a few feet from, I saw a bear run by, and I saw like the back of the bear just went completely silently, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. I was like, that was just like, I was by myself and like far away from all the other participants because everybody had scattered, to like do their own thing after the breath work. And I was like, oh, shit. That was a bear. So after, trying to make sure that the bear wasn't going to come back, I headed back very quickly and gingerly back down the mountain. And I got back down there and I was like, okay, I think I just saw the first bear. Like I sighted your bear there on the property for sure. But in a way, I choose to see things like that as signs.
Yeah.
And it just kind of felt to me like, no, I'm on the right path. That's exactly it. I was walking in the wood. I encountered a peaceful bear. This was part of my weekend. This was part of my journey. That bear had no interest. I know that bear knew I was there because, they're smart. They can smell.
Yeah.
That bear chose to ignore me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, that's exactly it. I just walked in the woods with a peaceful bear. There we go.
Yeah, so, and you're okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm also next time going to buddy up. I'm not, there are signs and then there's idiocy and I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah.
I'm at least going to have like a horn, like a bear.
Something.
Bear, bells, whatever you take. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, my camera is dying here, so we're going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for being here. I hope it wasn't too painful.
It was really fun. It's always fun to talk to you.
Awesome. Thank you.